Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be currently listening to us from. Thanks for joining yet another Skype for Business broadcast. My name is Jamie Stark. I look after voice, networking, and some other fun stuff for Skype for Business out of the marketing organization. And I am pleased, so excited to have joining me on a broadcast today. This is a treat. This is a super treat. Mr. Dan Strader, our engineering organization.
Great to be here.
You know, most of the time, Dan, you get to do these sessions with my colleague Sean, and so I am particularly tickled.
This is kind of different.
No, it is a little different. Yeah. You know, we have a good time. You've been in the business.
I feel like I look over and I expect to see Sean.
Well, he is growing the beard, so you know.
It's very confusing when you both have the chin and stuff.
It's getting a little chilly here in Seattle, but no, we're really both excited to be here because we're going to be talking about a new set of capabilities coming into Skype for Business Online very soon around regionally hosted meetings.
Right. This is big time for conference customers.
You've been working on this for quite a while now.
Yeah. Really proud of the developers that are slaving in the background on this.
Totally.
They're pulling off some incredible things, and finally we get to talk about it.
Yeah. No, this is absolutely, you know. And so we've got lots of folks that that come out to these broadcasts. Folks that have a lot of experience with Skype for Business. Some folks that are just kind of getting used to Skype for Business and just kind of learning about it new. So I wanted to talk a little bit about first just in the context of what we're doing with respect to meetings. Meetings are one of the biggest sets of capabilities that we offer with Skype for Business. Being able to have meetings that you can connect to no matter what device you're using, your mobile phone, tablets, your workstations, obviously, meeting room systems, of course, being able to have folks dial into your meetings, right? With PSTN conferencing, that's a kind of new set of capabilities that we launched.
When Microsoft is your provider, what's the count now? It's huge.
Oh, in terms of locations where you can dial in, it's over 90. Yeah. And it's both toll numbers like just kind of standard numbers, and then you can also get toll-free numbers.
Exactly.
Have those associated with your meetings.
Yeah.
In addition, you can have phone numbers for dialing in that you choose, right? So we give you a huge list. You can pick even more. So there's a tremendous amount of richness that's available in Skype for Business meetings, and I think as kind of a broad statement, we want to make sure that everybody who's using Skype for Business meetings has the best possible experience.
Yeah.
And that's really fundamentally where these investments come from, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that I've been impressed by, certainly I work on the area that I work on, and peers in engineering are working to expand the footprint of where we have these dial-in locations. And I've been impressed that in just 11 months, depending on how you count it, when we released at the start of the year, this thing is truly worldwide now. And we get to talk about how we're taking the infrastructure that we have across the data centers that we have for Skype for Business in Microsoft and the hyperscale we have, and we're actually going to now give you a bunch of new performance that goes along with it.
Right. And so today, when we think about the meetings capabilities, when somebody is operating out of Office 365 and they've got their tenant, they've got their company all set up in Office 365, they have users that are within that tenant, and those users go to spin up a meeting. Well, that meeting has to exist somewhere, right? Like there are actual resources that are spun up in our cloud in order to satisfy all the requirements of the meeting.
That's right.
Have a place to store the data, have
if you're kind of a tech person, you got to have an MCU somewhere.
And an MCU stands for?
Did I
catch you? Traditionally, a multi-point conferencing unit. Yeah, we call meetings conferencing units. But the idea being, it's a set of software that everybody connects to, and then we share all the media.
You gotta mix the media somewhere. That's
exactly. And so traditionally, where media is mixed is where the users are located in Office 365, right?
So today's story is if you're a multinational corporation, or even if you're not, you have a default tenant location, and that's where all your users are in the cloud. So this might be North America, it might be Europe, it might be Asia Pacific. And wherever your tenant is, that's where we do the media mixing today. That's where the MCUs are. That's where your conferences effectively are. So that's great when your tenant is where your users are. So if your users are in North America, your tenant's in North America, that's pretty good.
And now, so when I go to create my tenant, it's at that point,
Yeah.
and then this, for some folks, this might have been years ago, but it's at that point where we make the decision on where that software ends up being homed, or where that software ends up being loaded in our data centers.
By default, it's really where your billing address is.
Right? Oh, okay.
So where your billing address is where your tenant lands.
Got it.
In general.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. And it's interesting because, you know, if you think back to the server product, you know, the way that the way that online works is a little bit different from the way that the server product has worked. And for these big companies, our kind of canonical recommendation was, if you're going to have users all over the world, or then you want to have some server deployments in your data centers located around the world. For example, with Microsoft, we always tell the story. We've got some data centers in North America and kind of the Tukwila area here in Washington. We have in Europe, we've got it in Dublin, right? And then
Dublin, Amsterdam.
And that's right. And then in APAC, it's Singapore. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so when you have the server, those users, you would say, oh, well, if the user is going to be located in Japan, I want to home them off of the data centers that are located in Hong Kong and Singapore.
Right. This is what we did in Microsoft IT. This is what a lot of on-prem customers would do.
Absolutely. Yeah, really common to have 3 or 4 data centers and then have users split out here. And essentially, is it correct to say we're kind of bringing that type of control into Office 365
That's
now?
Right. Yeah, we're bringing that kind of control into the cloud. Today, if you're a multinational corporation, we say pick a region where you get a bunch of value for conferencing and move those users to the cloud. And then we say be hybrid for the rest of the world. That way you can get local performance with your on-prem deployment.
Got it.
Now we're about to change that statement.
Oh, that's big. That's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So what we get to say now is, actually, if you're a multinational corporation, if you have users worldwide, we have data centers for you all over the world. You can choose where your users are in our cloud, and that means you get regional performance for meetings inside our hyperscale cloud.
Okay, and so when Dan says, you know, located around the world, this isn't a marketing guy blowing smoke up your skirt here. This is reality. So we've got the image here. We're gonna flip that over and bring that up here, and so folks can see for multi-region support all the different data center locations that we've got. So we've got it up here on the screen. Everyone should be seeing it now as well. And so it's obviously you have EMEA, Europe, Middle East, Africa. You have North America, Asia Pac, and then more.
Yeah, Japan, Australia, India, Canada. We've announced UK. We've announced South Korea.
And so these are all areas that Microsoft has Office 365 data centers. They're running Skype for Business meetings code.
Exactly.
And this capability, this new regionally hosted meetings feature, well, this is going to allow folks to have users homed in these data centers.
Right. Admins now have choice about which of these locations their users are hosted in. So this is a big change. There's a couple details here for customers that maybe are choosing, instead of Office 365 commercial, they've chosen a different offering. We have an offering in China operated by 21 ViaNet. That's not part of this multinational corporation support thing we're doing.
Sure.
But we're looking at what we can do in the future. Same thing for our German national offering run by T-Systems. These are actually completely separate offerings. And so we're looking at how we solve that in the future. But today, it's everything above the line.
Yeah, right. Because the idea behind the the implementation in China and the implementation in Germany is that those are actually run by folks in that country that aren't Microsoft employees.
That's right.
So that gives,
and that's actually the value proposition
exactly
of those offerings for
totally.
folks that want that.
Okay, so that's so that's something that we're going to be working on in the future.
Right.
I realized that due to my glee in kicking off in this, I had forgotten to mention the fact that this is a broadcast, and we have things like Bing Pulse and Q&A. Of course, Paul's in the back, slaving through the questions. I have my workstation here. I am ready to take on questions. Do I have any yet from Paul? No, I don't.
Right.
Excellent. And so just want to make sure if anyone out there listen to us live, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in, and we'll be taking them either over text as we can, or Paul will shoot them out here and have them be part of our discussion. We always also want to know about customers' existing state and kind of their interest in this feature too. And so there's a couple questions that we're firing off through the Bing Pulse around that, because we want to get a sense of how folks are thinking about adopting this.
This is a huge opportunity for me to hear from folks that may be watching and attending.
Cool.
I will say sometimes I get a couple of questions on this slide, and folks
flip back to it. Okay.
Kind of look at this and say, does the fact that I don't get to use the 21 VNet or T systems with this feature release mean that I can't have users in China or Germany? Actually, if you're in our Office 365 commercial cloud, you can have folks all over the world. They can be in Germany, they can be in China. Yes, they can use it. You would just map them to, in this case, our Europe region or our APAC region.
Makes sense.
And that's done.
Okay, great. Yeah. Makes sense. And then I think the one that we didn't talk to, or two that we didn't talk to, the U.S. Government Community Cloud that we affectionately refer to here internally as GCC.
Yeah.
Again, a slightly different implementation, right? This isn't for the unwashed masses of enterprises, right? These are for specifically government entities in the U.S.
Right. Yeah. What we say, we make some commitments and promises around our government offering. And many of those promises are things like we're going to store your data on U.S. soil inside the contiguous U.S. So for that reason, of course,
makes sense, right?
we're not going to go multi-region.
Right. Because in addition to having kind of real time, information like our video coming through this broadcast, our audio being transmitted to you, anything that you're sharing. There's also stored information about meetings that exist up in the cloud.
That's right.
And that has to be protected. All those elements of the data need to be protected.
That's
okay, cool. Makes sense.
Good.
This has more than just meetings associated with it. Sean and I have had some spirited conversations about this.
And how to market this thing?
Well, I think it markets itself. I mean, it's just it really is a tremendous feature.
I feel like you could name this thing just about anything, and eventually people will discover what it is and it'll get used.
I mean, for the customers that are in this group that want to go even more into the cloud, this is just tremendous. But regionally hosted meetings is clearly the place where we see the greatest impact.
Yeah.
But there are also, if I'm moving the user from one tenant to another tenant, well,
it's single tenant.
Oh, I'm sorry, from one data center to another. You caught me.
Yeah.
Perfect. When I move them to another data center, they're logging into that data center too.
No, it's awesome.
Their contact list and other
and
other capabilities are operating out of the data center.
The killer thing here is meetings get better. But a lot of other things get better because you're moving that user. Logging gets better. Probably searching for context gets better. Mileage will vary a little bit for some of the base stuff, but closer is better.
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely makes sense. Very cool. So okay, you're gonna get a clearly a better experience by having users' meetings being physically closer to where they're located. You just get raw, lower latency.
Shorter network paths. The latency is lower. The thing that often really kills meetings is jitter. And often jitter gets higher the further the infrastructure is, just because you tend to have to pass through more infrastructure, and that infrastructure can be variable, and then you get jitter. So
when actually you got a slide on this. Let's go ahead and talk through this. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to flip over. We're going to get folks. We're going to folks seeing that right about now. Okay, cool.
Okay, good.
So folks should be seeing, this is the Skype for Business Architecture.
Super high level. The technical people can understand this. The non-technical people, I hope, can understand this. We'll use the example of a tenant that is in North America. Maybe their headquarters is in Los Angeles, so Contoso's headquarters is in Los Angeles.
Contoso gets around. Yeah. Contoso, Fabricam, Northwest Traders. Yeah. These are crazy companies. They're all over the place.
Wingtip Toys.
That's right. Oh yeah. No, there's a whole list.
So Contoso is headquartered in Los Angeles.
Yep.
Their tenant in our cloud is also by default in North America. It matches, right?
Yep.
But they have an office in Australia, in Sydney. And that means that the Australia users, they're logging into North America. When they log into the cloud, they're using meetings in North America when they do meetings, and we can make that better. So before we talk about how we make it better, there's a really important thing that happens on the network. The Australia users, they can reach the cloud 2 different ways. And we see customers doing both. So this is why it matters to take a moment to talk about this. Some customers have their offices around the world breaking out to the internet locally.
Right.
Which, when we do regionally hosted meetings, is exactly what we want. So that's kind of this dotted line.
Got it. Okay.
The other possibility is they've hyper-architected their internal network to have that traffic backhaul inside their corporate enterprise network and then break out to the cloud through their headquarters.
And that is actually a fairly common traditional
it's not uncommon. It's very traditional.
Networking configuration. Yeah, right. Because you imagine, their Los Angeles headquarters is probably where their data center is located.
Very few sort of new customers do it this way, but
very
traditional.
Very
traditional.
Well, and if I want to have a big proxy set up to be able to manage all my internet traffic, well, then I can have that big proxy set up in LA.
Right. One place.
Right. Exactly.
You break out to, and why not? Our cloud offering historically has been one place for our tenants, right?
Makes sense. Okay.
Okay. So as we add the multi-region support with regionally hosted meetings, now you can, as a tenant admin, you can choose to have your users be in Australia. So let's see what that looks like.
You know what I realized? We may have been viewing this privately this whole time.
Well, let's fix that.
Okay, now I think we're good now.
All right.
Okay. So now we've
the
got.
slide still works.
The slides are great. So now we've got the Office 365 stamp in Australia. So we affectionately call these our go local data centers, right? Because hey, we Australia.
This is part of our hyperscale data centers all over the world.
Absolutely.
Office in many of them. I think we're in approximately 20 data centers for Skype for Business now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's grown.
That's crazy. And so then, obviously, speed of light through fiber, when you're talking about just that raw connectivity from Australia into LA, right. That's got to be at least 80, 100 milliseconds, right? I mean, totally.
Yeah. So the admin changes the location of the user in our cloud, and at that point, the cloud does the right thing and moves the user to Australia.
Perfect.
And at this point, we want to have that branch office in Sydney use the local network connection to break out to the internet and go directly to our Australia data centers.
Makes sense.
So that's really critical. And I think if you click one more click, we want to make sure we don't have the red.
That's right. Okay? that's the
unhappy path.
The loop back path, right? Yeah. Where I'm there going. I'm going from my location in Sydney all the way up to my location in LA. All the way. No, that doesn't make any sense, right? So this is a really key point, right? That in addition to customers thinking about how their users are located and affinitizing those users to local data centers, they also need to think about the network architecture.
Right. So if you're using the Skype operations framework, or if you've deployed many years ago, you probably have gone through some steps to prepare your network, maybe prepare your firewalls, proxies, these sort of things, to have the best experience for your users, which is exactly the right thing to do. If you haven't had traffic leaving your regional locations, then you want to take a moment and do those soft steps, or at least look at them. Skype operation framework steps, and just make sure your network for that local breakout is ready for Skype to be as good as it can be.
And obviously, you can choose to do this yourself, or we have a huge number of systems integrators and partners trained on the Skype operations framework who are all familiar with this.
Yes, there's people that can accelerate your success. Absolutely.
Great way to phrase that.
You're welcome.
That's nice. Can we use that? Oh, okay. We actually got a couple questions.
Good.
You ready?
Let's do some.
Okay, yeah. So clearly the questions, we kind of dive into a little bit of detail here. And so one of them is, hey, how about MCU cascading or similar functionality between regions? And so I've actually known this capability as barbelling. So the idea that you've got multiple MCUs that all have users connected to them, and then the MCUs are connecting together.
Right.
That's not what's happening here, right?
That's not what we've talked about.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
The reason I didn't say no is one of the things that we can do with our hyperscaled cloud is, let's say the organizer is in Sydney and they create a meeting. So now that meeting is hosted in Australia, in our data centers, right?
Okay.
One of the cool things we can do for the Los Angeles user is we can actually take advantage of our hyperscaled cloud to have the Los Angeles user connect into North America and get into our Microsoft cloud in North America. And then we can protect and connect the media inside of our cloud back to Australia. So you can think of the cloud now as this huge piece of worldwide fabric that Microsoft runs and actually connects that media across regions for you. And all you have to do is get to our cloud locally.
Got it.
So this is something that we can do with our scale. It's something we do in Skype Consumer. And it's something that we're increasingly able to do in the next calendar year with Skype for Business in Office 365. So this is a way that we can actually do that sort of cascade scenario, but we don't really talk about it that way because that's kind of like this legacy way to talk about it. What we really are doing is we're getting your traffic wherever you are locally to our cloud, and then we connect it inside of our cloud and optimize it for you and bypass the internet.
So essentially, we're kind of doing the same thing.
We achieve the same business.
Yeah, that's right. The business result is we want to have a really optimized media for these meetings. Yeah. One of those paths historically has been connect the MCUs together and then have users connect locally to MCUs. Yeah. We're finding that by using our network backplane, as soon as you get somebody onto the Microsoft network, latency then is significantly reduced because we throw bandwidth at the problem.
Yeah, exactly. So like the kind of barbelling or cascading model, typically the reason businesses used to care about it is it was to reduce bandwidth on the WAN, right? On the enterprise WAN.
Right. No, of course. Right. Because then instead of having multiple media sessions kind of going through,
the
one WAN link. Yeah,
on the corporate network.
Exactly.
And the cloud completely flips that. With the cloud, it's just get your user traffic out to the internet.
Makes sense.
In the region that the users are in. And then the cloud becomes this giant aggregator worldwide for you that just connects the media. And, whether we barbell or not, Microsoft now is the person that deals with the bandwidth. So you don't care as a customer.
Well, you care in the sense that it's our responsibility, right? Yeah, this is Microsoft.
You want us to
We're taking it on. Yeah, exactly.
We take that seriously. You don't have to have the same network concerns you used to have. Now your network concerns are, how do I get great regional access to the Microsoft cloud?
All right, you sold me. Let's do it. How do customers move forward today?
Yeah.
So like we're talking to folks. They go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I had no idea. I got to do this. Let's go.
Yeah.
What do they do today?
Yeah. So a couple things. We're in preview right now.
Cool. Okay. Love the preview program. We'll talk about that a lot on the podcast.
Yeah, we'll probably finish there as well. So folks can go to preview now. If they're under NDA, they can find the feature. They can request it.
Okay. So they're going to skypepreview.com under the NDA section. Exactly. Even though this isn't under NDA, obviously we're just talking about this, and you guys presented a much more detailed session at Ignite.
And we feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still under the NDA section of Skype Preview. Okay.
Right. And that may change, but if you went there today,
got it.
That's what it is.
And then we're expecting to be out of preview.
Yeah, we get out of preview the end of this calendar year.
Yeah.
So, celebrate New Year's. And then after that, we're going to have limited availability, which means it's not preview quality, it's release quality, but we want you to call support if you're a Premier customer. So Premier customers can have this.
Great.
As we exit the calendar year. The way you get it is you call support up with your Premier contract. You'd say, I want this. They'll work with you to make sure that your tenant gets enabled.
Perfect.
And then we get to do the things that we'll do for setting it up as a tenant admin.
Okay, great. And so I actually wanted to talk about that a little bit, because there's some configuration that happens on both the tenant admin side and on the user side. Okay,
that's right. So when you call support or when you enter preview, we'll take care of number one for you. We'll convert your tenant to be multi-region aware. The next thing you do is at the tenant level, you choose which allowed locations you're going to have for the tenant. Most tenants, they'll allow every region they have users, but some people may want additional control and may choose a couple places to not put users.
Okay, fair enough.
And then finally, you just, you do those things once on the tenant. Now you do the user actions.
Perfect.
So you have, to begin with, if you've already had 100% of your users in the cloud, they're all in one region, and now you need to distribute them to the allowed locations you chose.
Yep.
So this is a PowerShell command that you're already familiar with. It's a AAD PowerShell command for MSO user, and you just set a new attribute on it, preferred data location, and you're done. So this is a command you're already using. You change an attribute on it, and then we make the magic happen in the background.
Perfect. So just to recap, if you get into this in preview, if you get into this in the first kind of quarter availability, Premier support is going to take care of number one. It's going to take care of converting that tenant into multi-region. At some point in the future, there's going to be a PowerShell command or something in the admin console to be able to do that.
We open this up to anybody, whether you're Premier or not, regardless of what license you have. That's right.
Excellent. Okay. And most companies that are of size that would first take advantage of this, they all should have Premier contracts. Right. I mean, if they don't, shame on you. You need to be doing some Premier, right? I mean, no question. Okay, and then configure the allowed locations. Make sure that that all the users are set to the right online location. And then so then if they're hybrid. Now by hybrid you mean if they are running on the server, and then they want to, like in your example,
where we gave the example of if you're an existing customer and you're a multinational customer.
So you've got a tenant in North America and maybe servers in Europe.
Exactly.
And Asia.
Yeah, that's the guidance we've given you.
Yep.
And that means you still have users on premise in some regions.
Okay.
So you still do all of these steps if you're moving a user from on-prem to the cloud. And then you have the last step, which is actually the same as before this feature. You use move CS user to move that user to the cloud.
It's so easy.
It's like on a user level, it's like one line.
I love that. It's just amazing. There is so much complexity, and there's so much detail, and there's so much engineering that has happened in the background, and it percolates all up. It's like an iceberg, right? It percolates up into this tiny thing that's floating above the water, but underneath is 90% of the mass. Right?
So I used to be an MSIT, Microsoft IT, and was part of the team that was running the link deployment, Skype for Business deployment. And I remember how much work it took to stand up another region of servers or upgrade them or whatever.
Absolutely.
And now you can literally get a whole region of cloud with a line of code.
This is the beauty of the cloud.
That's how far we've come.
Again, kudos to you and your engineering team for the amount of work.
Thank you. They love hearing that.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, so one of the things that I can imagine happening. Let's say I'm a customer who's got I'm in North America. I've got some users who are hosted in Europe. I want to take advantage of this. those Europe users, they already are using Skype for Business. They already have meetings up and running. Yeah. They've already got stuff happening here.
Right. Right.
When I move them over, what happens to those meetings? Like, they've got to cancel them and resend them out. Right. Like, do they, like, what's the process on the user side to make sure that their existing meetings still work appropriately?
Yeah, good. So there's a few admin triggered actions that change meeting coordinates. Okay. And this is true today, even before regionally hosted meetings. So maybe you go from having something like no dial-in conferencing to having Microsoft as your dial-in provider.
Yep.
That's a trigger. Maybe it's you've changed regions. That's a trigger, right? We're going to rewrite you're going to have new coordinates if you change regions. If you move from on-prem to the cloud, whether you're doing dial-in conferencing or not, that's a trigger that changes meeting coordinates. So today, prior to regionally hosted meetings, you use the meeting migration tool as an end user.
Got it.
And you're able to update your meetings.
So the user moves to the new location. They run the meeting migration tool, and then that
refreshes the coordinates
for
the previously scheduled meetings. Like new meetings, if you schedule a new meeting, everything's good.
Then it knows because
Your old meetings you kind of stuffed into Exchange and they had old coordinates. You need to have some way to key into your mailbox.
Scrub the calendar, erase that URL, put in the new one. Right. Okay.
And that's actually what the meeting migration tool does. I mean,
it doesn't use an actual eraser. It changes bits.
Digital eraser. But like admins don't love this because it relies on the end user using a tool, using it successfully, doing it in a timely manner.
Coming from MSIT, clearly you know that every user is perfect and does these things within an hour of notification, right? I mean, that's...
Oh, man.
So the meeting migration tool is there. There... I think there's
That's what we have today.
That's right.
Now, with cloud, we have more magic. So if your Exchange mailbox is in the cloud, we can actually update the coordinates for you. If you're moving from on-prem to the cloud, if you're moving between regions and you're using a web conference, if you're using Microsoft as your dial-in provider even, we can update it.
And so this is this meeting migration service. So no longer a tool, now a process running in the back end that catches those events and does that change auto-magically.
Yeah. You have Exchange Online as your mailbox.
Okay.
Now you don't need the meeting migration tool.
Oh, well, that makes sense. That makes sense, right? Because if you're in Exchange Online, we can reach into the mailbox, we can do the work, and we can do so in compliant fashion.
This is the power of the cloud.
If you're on premises with Exchange, then you're still going to need to run the update tool.
That's right.
Great value in moving your mailbox to Exchange Online.
Another thing we can do when you're in the cloud. Also available this calendar year.
And so this is coming in concordance with, in coordination with the regionally hosted meetings capability.
Exactly.
But it's not just for regionally hosted meetings, obviously.
It's so useful. We're using it for our on-prem to cloud migrations as well.
Nice.
So you don't have to be a regionally hosted meetings customer. You don't even have to be using dial-in conferencing. You can just use this from on-prem to cloud, and we'll make sure that as long as Exchange is there for us, we'll update the user's mailbox on your behalf.
And you don't have to do anything as an admin. Like I don't have to set a trigger. I don't have to do any.
Yeah,
it just works.
The trigger is actually the thing you're already doing.
Right.
If I use move CS user, that's the trigger.
Perfect.
Now, one thing that is worth noting is, when you do these triggers as an admin, you're creating, in some ways, a small experience change for the user. You used to be on premise, now you're in the cloud. As a tenant admin, you want to send a communication to the users to still let them know you're a cloud user now. Maybe that's a time you ask them to change their client. So, you're going to send a comm to the users.
Makes sense.
Part of what you'll do when you send that communication is you now won't have to say run meeting migration tool. So your mail got a little shorter, right?
They're cheering now.
Yeah. But you might tell them, by the way, you'll see some meeting updates for your meetings and attendees.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
That way they don't.
They're not calling the help desk going, what's up with these meeting updates?
Yeah, right. The help desk know, because you will still see calendar updates. So prepare your help desk for
because
that.
Because the people that you've sent the meeting to, they're going to get the update of the new location. Exactly. They're going to accept that. That'll show up in your mailbox.
Yeah. We're going to do this automatically for you. But if you move like, I don't know, thousands of users in the same campus, all on the same maintenance window, let's say, they're going to come in the next morning. They're going to see a bunch of calendar updates. They should have a mail from your IT staff saying, by the way,
is expected.
You got moved to the cloud.
This is not a surprise.
And your meetings still work.
By the fact that you've gotten these things, that means it was wildly successful and you can continue on and do your work. Yeah. And you don't have to call us. Mm-hmm. That's the best, right? Yeah. When IT doesn't get the phone call, that's goodness.
That's right.
Excellent. I've got another question here.
Good.
Talking about how regionally hosted meetings impacts ACP.
Right. So, regionally hosted meetings.
Well, first, what's ACP? I love being able to play the host and asking the simple questions. This is so much fun. Right. Tell me about ACP.
So if you're in our cloud today,
yep.
You have a choice on dial-in provider.
Obviously, Microsoft as our own PSTN conferencing
provider.
Yep.
Or you can have a third-party provider.
Got it.
So this would be like Intercall, BT, PGI, AT&T. Those are the other choices that you have. So we have customers that have those third-party partners.
Audio conferencing providers or audio conferencing partners, ACP. Got it. Okay.
When you have a third party, this is a case where you still need the meeting migration tool. When you use Microsoft as your cloud provider, this is again a case where we have more magic we can apply, and you can take advantage of the meeting migration tool. So, meeting migration service.
The meeting migration tool, I think just because it's been around for so long, that it rolls off my tongue, and I have to stop myself. Like, it's not the tool anymore. Yeah. It's the service. It's the magic in the background.
Right. In fact, when you're using Microsoft, we want the tenant admins, the users, to not even know this thing exists. It just updates meetings on your behalf.
Perfect.
But when you're using the third party or on-prem, you're still going to need the meeting migration tool, and the end users are still going to need to run it, and that's how it's going to work.
Perfectly reasonable. Yeah, makes total sense.
There's a second thing for the third-party audio conference providers.
Mm-hmm.
We'll provide guidance on this, but we want to make sure that tenant admins make really informed choice when they move regions, because it may be the case that the audio conference provider you use today may not be in the new region that you're moving to.
Oh, right. Right. Okay.
So this is just a planning step that's
Sure.
super critical for admins to do.
Okay. Got it.
So it's not a no, it's a yes if.
Yep.
So check and then move.
And that is part of that. I assume that's part of the process too. We're going to do with Premiere to make sure that all those
Premiere
pieces.
will help, right?
Yeah.
We'll put this out on TechNet.
Excellent.
This may be an area we can extend some of the meeting migration service to third parties in the future. We're always looking at ways now that we have the meeting migration service to add value as we get into the next calendar year. So we're open to suggestions and ideas on that.
Perfect.
How we'll start is exactly how we described it.
Excellent. Okay. Last question, because we're just about at time here, and it's one near and dear to my heart. Tell me about how this operates when I've got cloud PBX and on-premises PSTN connectivity. So if I've got a cloud connector edition and I've got that connected up to my own circuits, but I'm using Office 365 and I'm using cloud PBX for my voice capability, and I want to have those users moved to a more local data center. What's the impact there?
Right. So there's a couple of things to think about there. The first is when we release at the end of this year.
Yep.
We're going to take a quarter and we're going to do a broad range of testing for our Cloud Connector Edition customers.
Excellent.
So
testing's good.
So they're in play. They're in scope.
We're
going to ask them to wait a quarter. So spring is when those customers get to use the feature.
Okay. Do you want to have? Is it useful to have those folks come into Skype Preview to be able to have them to be able to exercise that code? Okay, cool.
They can still be a customer.
Well, of course. we want everyone to be a customer. Let's be clear.
They can still be part of regionally hosted meetings preview. Right? but we're going to be super specific about which users use it.
And for the time being, those hybrid users are not in. The users who their telephony is coming through on-prem, that's not in scope today, but it'd be about a quarter.
Yeah, and there's more for us to think about, and there's more test cases for us to exercise.
There are a lot of test cases,
and we want to make sure we get that right before we say go, go, go. If you're a cloud PBX user with a bring your own SIP trunk model.
Perfect. Okay. Well, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for coming out here. Yeah, no.
Thank you for all the awesome questions.
Yeah, no, this is great. Yeah, the questions have been excellent. Thank you all so much for coming out to our regionally hosted meetings episode of the Skype for Business broadcast. Coming up, our next episode will be December the 1st, and we'll be talking about the new Mac client. Just released. Very good. We actually get to drag Paul out of the shadows and put him up here in front of the camera, which would be fantastic. And so thanks all for coming out. Really appreciate it. And we'll be talking to you soon. Bye.